Hey everybody, welcome to Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. I'm Joe Mayo and I have a channel on YouTube, Mean Mr. Mayo. And let me tell you, we have some fun getting started here tonight. Let me tell you, there are a lot of challenges for this show, but hopefully we'll pull it off. Okay, we're going to be talking about another one of our albums that we call maybe like sometimes not well received. So we have this series that we call Another Listen, where we give it a chance and see if it holds up, if it's gotten better, if we liked it all along, whatever. And we have a special guest. Before I get to the special guest, let me introduce my co-hosts. First, of course, the queen of all backdrops, and that's a nice backdrop you got there, Queen. I like it. You got everybody there. You got Ringo, Paul, Barbara, Linda, and she has a couple of books. She's the author of the songs we were singing, guided tours through the Beatles' lesser-known tracks, fandom and the Beatles. She does a podcast called Toppermost of the Poppermost, talking about the one, the only Kit O'Toole. Hey, Kit.
Hello, Joe. Hello, everybody. Hello, special guest. Good to
All
be
right.
with you all. Happy New Year.
Okay, next up, I think I'll change here a little bit. We'll go over to the syndicated radio show Every Little Thing. You know what we're going to be talking about here? He has a podcast, Beatles Things We Said Today, Talking Beatles, and a YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, and that has interviews, trivia, panel discussions, all kinds of stuff over there. I'm talking about Ken Michaels. Hey, Ken.
Hey Joe, good to be back. Like Kid said, Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Now, finally, for our regulars, he's a little under the weather and he's trying hard to make the show. Got some coughing, the voice is a little rough, but he's trying to be a champ here. He is one leg of the Two Legs podcast, McCartney centric. Tom Agnotti. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
How you doing, Joe? Thanks, and happy New Year to everybody. I got crappy internet right now. I got a crappy throat, but happy birthday, Andy, and go blue.
Okay, all right. And here's our special guest I'm going to announce. He has a channel called, to get a load of this if you don't know him already, Call Me Mr. Broadstreet, because he is a very proud fan of Give My Regards to Broadstreet, and we thought it'd be perfect to have him here. And we're talking about Edward Crawford. Ed, welcome to Talk More Talk.
Thank you all for having me on. And yeah, this is definitely within my wheelhouse. I've got a couple items over here, so I think it'll
Yeah,
be a fun time.
you got some goodies, some memorabilia. Should we wait till after the news, perhaps? We usually do the news first. Now, Ken, how are you doing on news today? Do we have a lot of news?
Well, really, the only major news item is that it's Annie Nichols' birthday. So I figured yeah,
Happy
today
birthday, Andy.
because everything else pales in comparison.
Oh, the same day as Elvis
Yes.
David Bowie.
and
And
Bowie.
David Bowie. That's right.
Yeah. But actually, I
Okay.
do
Ken,
have
you have
quite a
my
lot of news.
Quite a lot of news.
Ken, you have my permission to take as long as you want with the news today.
Yeah, drink some of that hot tea, Tom.
Yep.
I hope it's English tea.
Yep.
And biscuits.
You have to be very twee.
That's right.
All right. In Beatle news, I very proudly rate this as the number one news item. Well, after Annie Nichols' birthday. Since I've been complaining that we haven't heard any update on it until now, Paul McCartney has a feature on his website called You Gave Me the Answer, in which he invites his fans to ask him questions, and he answers them. A fan wrote in and asked, will we ever get to hear the songs that you wrote for a musical stage version of It's a Wonderful Life? And Paul gave a vague answer, but it's what we've got to work with. He said, I hope so, yeah. Musicals are difficult things to put together, but I think it may be shaping up at last. So hopefully you'll get to hear the songs. It's the end of the quote. At least we know it's not a dead issue. That's still being worked on, but at least we got something about this because nobody ever asked him the question. Also, although I haven't seen it, I've heard that the latest issue of Record Collector is one to rave about. It's dedicated completely, 100% to Paul McCartney. It includes a breakdown of every album from the Family Way, including studio, live, classical, fireman, and everything in between, packed with photographs and fan collections, as well as a highly detailed 10-page discography listing singles, albums, variations, colored vinyls, box sets, archives, CDs, DVDs, soundtracks, and guest appearances with release dates and values. You can see what your items are worth and what you still need in your collection. And our good friend Owen Lynn, who's been a frequent guest on my YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, as well as right here on Talk More Talk, and also on Two Legs, contributed a review of Paul McCartney's album New. That is in the latest issue of Record Collector. I'm going to have to order it online because all my local stores that I checked out here didn't have it. But it sounds like it's really a dynamite issue. All right, it's believed to be the only painting the four Beatles collaborated on together, and now it's up for auction. Christie's Auction House in New York will be putting up for sale Images of a Woman, a painting that all four Beatles worked on in 1966 during their tour of Japan. This was done at the Tokyo Hilton, while the Beatles gave 5 concerts at the Nippon Budokan Arena. The Beatles spent about 100 hours in Japan, most of it at their hotel room. Apart from 2 instances when John and Paul snuck out with members of their entourage, Japanese authorities wanted the group to stay in their hotel for their own safety. The Beatles' appearances at the Budokan Arena drew both adoring fans and protesters alike, as there were threats from Japanese nationalists who viewed the arena as a spiritual home for martial arts. The promoter for the concerts gave the Beatles some art supplies, and the group wound up around a table with a blank sheet of Japanese art paper in the middle and a lamp roughly centered on top of it. Each Beatle sat at a corner, painting something different. And each Beatle put their signatures on their own contributions. The painting is expected to fetch between $400,000 and $600,000. And you can actually watch an interview that I just did with Beatles author Doug Wolfberg discussing this painting on my YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio. And it's a story that he covers in his new book called Fab But True, Remarkable Stories Revealed, Doug Wolfberg. So we talk about that at length in my interview with him. The painting goes on sale February 1st. Now, if any of you watched the most recent Things We Said Today podcast, we had 3 special guests on. Walter Everett, the author of the book, The Beatles as Musicians. That's a 2-volume set. Also, Jack Petrozelli, a multi-instrumentalist, producer, and songwriter, and a member of the Beatles tribute band, the Fab Four, and Cameron Greider, also a multi-instrumentalist and producer who's done a lot of session work. Together, the 3 of them formed an online group called the RPM School. RPM stands for Rock Pop Music, and starting today, January 8th, they are launching an 8-week course on the White Album. For 8 Mondays in a row at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, they will have classes devoted to the White Album in which they explore the album's innovative recording techniques, also delving beneath the surface to understand what makes these songs great, plus the meanings these songs have for us. And in the show they did for Things We Said Today, Walter, Jack, and Cameron demonstrate what they'll do if you watch their shows, going into music theory as well. Their website says the first 45 minutes of each class will be devoted to All Together Now, a live multimedia presentation and discussion on Zoom with these 3 Beatles scholars. And afterwards, you have the option of staying on for a seminar with Walter or a virtual band, a combination masterclass and remote recording project led by Cameron or Jack. Their show on January 22nd, 2 weeks from today, will also have Beatles engineer Ken Scott, who worked on the White Album, joining them as a special guest. If you're interested, you can visit their website at rpm-school.com. Speaking of Ken Scott, he has teamed up with Fab DuPont, who is the producer and co-owner of plugin designer and provider of recording techniques tutorial, puremix. They have collaborated on a film called The History of the Beatles Recording Techniques. From an article that appeared in Music Radar, Ken said, Fab and I were talking about how the recording techniques that the Beatles used changed everything. So we split it into 4 sections: the Please Please Me era, the Drive My Car era, the White Album era, and the Abbey Road era. We went into Abbey Road Studio 2, the main one that the Beatles used, and did a 5-camera shoot using the same gear that they did. The red desks heard on every album up to Abbey Road, and the TG desks used on Abbey Road itself. The same microphones, and as close as we could get to the same instrumentation. For the playing, we used musicians from the New York Beatles tribute band, the Fab Four. And even though I worked with the Beatles from A Hard Day's Night through to the White Album, albeit with a break in the middle, there were some things that were a revelation to me. This is on the website puremix.com. And if you check our description box for this video, we're going to have the link if you want to sign up for that, and also for the RPM School and the 8 classes on the White Album. All right, Sean Lennon is one of the artists involved for an album called Asterisms that'll be coming out in February. Sean is the leader of an all-star band of downtown luminaries, downtown New York. Years in the making, the music is described as powerful, trippy, and intensely imaginative, blending rock, electronics, jazz, and more into an exciting new musical soundscape. With driving rhythms, a stunning lyricism, and a brilliant sense of orchestration, this album is sure to surprise and delight music fans the world round. Beautifully recorded, this is a modern instrumental music album at its very best. And so, an all-instrumental album from Sean Lennon and all these musicians that he's working with. I thought I'd include this in the news. You might have heard that a couple weeks ago, Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, a song that has given her the distinction of the longest gap ever between #1s, 63 years since 1960's I Want to Be Wanted. In an interview with People, Brenda was asked about her relationship with the Beatles. She said, I go back a long way with the Beatles. I worked with them in their early years when I used to tour England all the time. I just went to Ringo's show. He did a concert here at the Musicians Hall of Fame, and we reminisced a little while about stuff. It was a lot of fun, but we were all learning back in those days. It was by the seat of our pants a lot of times, but we were having fun. We played in Germany too, at the Star Club. When told that John Lennon once said her voice defined rock and roll, Brenda said, "Ah, that was so sweet of him. Thank you for sharing that." I also want to add to this story that many years ago I had the privilege of interviewing Brenda Lee, and she told me that since she was on Decca Records and she knew the Beatles, she was trying to help get them a record deal with Decca, but they wouldn't listen to her. So Decca was wrong. In England, they were wrong here too. But Brenda was a fan of their music and a good friend of theirs. We send our congratulations out to our colleague Ken Womack, whose new book on Mal Evans, Living the Beatles Legend, The Untold Story of Mal Evans, was voted among the best music books to come out in 2023 by both Rolling Stone magazine and Variety. Way to go, Ken.
Yes.
So I heard, Kit, that your podcast, Toppermost of the Poppermost, was honored recently as being in the top, was it 10 of podcasts?
Yes. And so was this one. This was as well.
Great.
Yes, indeed. Yep, the same list. This is the Andy Darer Show, which is a long-running podcast and website, and he also is the owner of Blue Village Vinyl Records, which is my local record store. And yes, he listed Toppermost and this one as top among his top favorite podcasts and video casts of 2023. So we are very honored, both at Toppermost and right here, to be listed. So thank you, Andy.
Yes, that is sweet.
Yes.
For voting.
Yeah, how sweet it is.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, a few more items here. I think. Might be a little bit more. On the recent Kennedy Center Awards, Barry Gibb was honored. And Paul McCartney sent a video message saying, "How Deep Is Your Love" is a great song, and that he, Paul, should have written it. Also, on New Year's Eve in Times Square, just before midnight, Paul Anka performed Imagine. I got to witness this. I've seen Paul Anka in recent years. He's in his 80s. He's got an amazing voice. It's as powerful as ever. He really keeps it in great shape. The new Weaklings album comes out January 19th called Raspberry Park, which includes mainly originals with 2 covers of Beatles songs, I've Just Seen a Face and She's Leaving Home. You'll be able to see the Weaklings in concert at the Beatles on the Beach Rock Festival in Delray Beach, Florida, January 24th through the 28th, as well as the Fest for Beatle fans, February 9th through the 11th at the TWA Hotel. Well, the Grammy Awards are coming up February 4th. While the Beatles are not nominated for anything audio-wise, I did notice online that the video that was made for I'm Only Sleeping was nominated for Best Music Video, something there to root for all of us. It was also announced last week by the Recording Academy, the organization behind the Grammy Awards, that music veteran Peter Asher will be honored with the Trustees Award as part of this year's Grammy Awards week. Peter is said to be surprised and delighted by this recognition from his peers that celebrates a lifetime of excellence in the world of music. Congratulations, Peter, on this much-deserved honor. Also, a friend of the Beatles family, Tom Scott, will also be getting that honor. Some special events coming up. Our colleague Ken Womack will be appearing this Thursday, January 11th, at the Jacob Burns Film Arena in Pleasantville, New York, Pleasantville, New York, to discuss his new book on Mal Evans. The time for that is 7 p.m. This Wednesday is the last day if you want to see the special presentation at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland called Get Back to Let It Be, curated by the museum with footage from the documentary for Get Back and performances from the Apple Rooftop Concert. Also, legendary DJ, Cousin Brucey, Bruce Morrow, will be doing a show at the City Winery in New York City on February 5th, in which we'll be talking with Jamie Bernstein. I believe, I'm not totally certain, that she's the daughter of Leonard Bernstein. I was thinking it might be Sid Bernstein.
Well, I was just thinking.
Kids, she's not one of them. And Jamie Bernstein put out a book a few years ago, and they said that she's the daughter of Leonard Bernstein. So I guess that's the one. It's called The Beatles Conversation, this event, no doubt to mark the 60th anniversary of the Beatles' arrival in America. Beatles music will be performed by the group Black Rabbit. Of course, the Fest for Beatle fans is happening February 9th to the 11th at the TWA Hotel at JFK Airport. So many guests, so little time. Visit thefest.com for more information. We have to mention a couple of major passings that happened in the last few weeks. Of course, that of Tommy Smothers, one half of the Smothers Brothers, along with his brother Dick. The Beatles premiered their videos for Hey Jude and Revolution on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. That was in October of 1968. I don't know if you caught this, by the way. If you read Ken Womack's book on Mal Evans, it talks about when Revolution was aired, Janis Joplin was giving a concert in Cincinnati with Big Brother and the Holding Company. In the middle of the concert, they wheeled out a television because she had to watch the Beatles on the Smothers Brothers show with their video of Revolution.
Oh, wow.
Show. And then when that
And
was
that,
isn't that
that's
cool?
what you call respect.
Yeah.
Right there. Nothing more important than watching the Beatles new video.
And that's one of my only memories in real time of the Beatles is my mom waking me up, say, Beatles are on TV, come on down. And I went down, and it's 6 years old, and saw them doing Hey Jude from the Smothers Brothers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's one of the few memories I had. And I remember it clearly, and I was like, these guys ain't the Beatles. They didn't look like the Beatles to me from the cartoons and everything. They look different, John with the glasses and everything. It was a little bit of a shock, but I knew the song already. I loved the song.
Well, it was quite an event. I'm sure Beatle fans were glued those 2 weeks in a row because they aired one video. They aired Hey Jude first and then Revolution the next week. A few weeks after, George Harrison appeared as a special guest that was broadcast November 17th, just to show his support for the show after the network CBS were censoring the duo for their socio-political views. Let us not forget, Tommy played acoustic guitar during John and Yoko's bed-in Montreal on their recording of Give Peace a Chance, and is referenced in the song. John and Harry Nilsson were ejected from the Troubadour Club in Hollywood for heckling the Smothers Brothers. Ringo Starr appeared on the Smothers Brothers show. This was another one they had. This was April 28th of 1975, where he sang the No-No song with Tommy and Dick. So a lot of tie-ins there between the Smothers Brothers and Tommy and the Beatles. Tommy died on December 26th at the age of 86. And Japanese photographer Kishin Shinoyama, who took one of the last pictures of John and Yoko, has died at the age of 83. It was Shino who took the classic photo of John and Yoko kissing that was used on the front cover for their Double Fantasy album. Kishin spent 5 days with the couple in 1980, and it was he who suggested they kiss for the front cover. He said, quote, "I think it was their happiest moment. I was fortunate to have been there, and I feel privileged to have captured the moment." Yoko said this on Twitter: "When John and I decided to make the album Double Fantasy, breaking a 5-year silence, we wondered whom we should ask to take the photographs. As the two of us thought about it, suddenly the face of Kishin Shinoyama came to mind. I said, for once, I'd really like to have a Japanese photographer. John quickly agreed, saying, right, that sounds good. I never expected that, quote, for once, this would turn out to be the last album John and I made together, and that for once would live on forever. It was a job coveted by photographers all over the world, and I truly feel that Kishin Shinoyama was destined to be the one to take those photos. And that's what led to the Double Fantasy photos being seen by people around the globe." Sad to report that. Finally, we send out happy 80th birthday wishes to Paul McCartney's younger brother, Michael, who turned the big 80 yesterday, January 7th. Okay.
His collaboration with Paul McCartney turns 50 this year, mid-year.
That's right.
Wow. Oh, gosh.
We'll
Why
have to do
50?
something for that.
Yeah.
All right. And that's all the news, Ken?
That's it.
All right. Now let's go on.
When you take a few more weeks off, the news piles up.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
always Beatles related news, always.
Yeah.
All right, so our main topic now, we're going to talk about Give My Regards to Broad Street, not the film. We could mention the film a little bit, and I'm wondering if Ed has any memorabilia here. I got the CD handy. This one I got the one. This is the Holland one.
That's a 93 McCartney collection
93
edition.
We figure we were going to concentrate on the album, the soundtrack album of the movie. Ed, I got 2 of them too with the hype stickers. Not the. It's funny you should. I was looking to pull one out. And I said I got 2 of these. I didn't even know.
I've got another one over there, but that's.
I'm sure because we're going to talk about that. I wanted to start out by talking a little about that, if I may, because let's talk a little bit about, before we get into the album, the soundtrack, and everything, of how you got so into that, because that's what you call your channel on YouTube. Call me Mr. Broad Street. How did you get so apparently obsessed and in love with that movie? Give My Regards to Broad Street.
Obsessed. I don't know what you guys are saying here. Your jacket there. The brief version. So I didn't get to see it in theaters. I did get to see a little bit of it on VHS around, let's say, 1985 or so. That was that summer. I think my dad had a tape that he may have rented or something like that, if I'm trying to remember right now. And then again, I caught it. We're going a little bit forward in time when I saw Paul McCartney.
Did you ever return it, or is it still connecting late fees?
No. I'd say I don't think it's collecting late fees now. I think there was a little copy somewhere, but I'd have to investigate that. But the thing was, and then fast forward a little bit, got to go to my first concert back in 1990, July 4th, to see Paul. That ignites my full fandom. A couple years later, I get to buy the reissue of Broad Street, the film. That was probably 1996, if I'm remembering correctly, somewhere around there. Soundtrack album, the rest is history. And then I just started diving deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And I guess for me, it's kind of like it's a little bit of an untapped market. As I started going down the rabbit hole, I thought, like stuff like Yellow Submarine had a lot of things, but turns out a lot of stuff for Broad Street. I really enjoy the film. I know we're not really focusing on that. I think the album itself, I really enjoy it. Flows really well together. I don't want to go too far ahead, but that's kind of the recap, really, of how I just.
What kind of items did you bring along? Memorabilia, promo stuff, maybe? What do you have?
Sealed compact disc.
Oh, yeah. The long box too.
Yeah.
And the long box.
I'll take that.
A lot of those.
Second one I picked up. These are harder to find.
It's a very thin script.
That's few pages. Wait, I've tried to do pages.
It's a script that lasts to lunchtime.
Right here, this is just a little promo from 20th Century Fox. I'm just trying to put stuff down here next to me, so excuse me. Here's a little bit of advertising art. I've got the press kit. I've got the tapes. Missing tapes on VHS and beta.
Mm-hmm.
Never had a beta player. But
yeah, I never did either. Those were kind of expensive.
Yeah. In my regards to Rush Street, that's the Chicago interview from October of 1984 when he was promoting the film. One of my pins right here. And finally, I think to keep it somewhat short, I'll just show these in rapid order, hopefully. I got sheet music, the 12-inch, and I've also got the press kit right here. So yeah, you could say I kind of enjoy this. Oh, and another pin as well. Pardon me while I'm grabbing stuff from the side here. Another pin right here.
I have that on my refrigerator. I stick it in this corner of the logo of the refrigerator.
Let's see, I got the sheet music right here. Picked that up fairly recently. I can't play a note, but I just love seeing it. And No More Lonely Nights single. I picked this up about 1997, so this is actually the oldest item, I think. Mm-hmm. The oldest record item in my collection as far as No More Lonely Nights. 12-inch single. Right here. Picture disc single. I got that at Beatle Fest 2002, I think. Or Fest for Beatles fans, as they now call it. And finally, the press kit. One of a couple I've got. And pretty much complete. And it just has all sorts of bios and stuff like that on the folks.
Wait a minute. Yeah. You're coming up here showing all this stuff, and you're not going to show the video game?
Oh, yeah, of course I got the video game.
I knew there was something special I remember that he had, but I didn't know.
Yeah, hold on here. I've got the video game. Of course I do. Actually, give me 1 second. I had it right here.
You've got it.
No, that's not the video game.
That's
just
nice.
While he's looking for the video game.
You're talking about this right here.
Oh, wait a minute.
There it is.
Right
there. Yes. That's it. That's the video game. It was a floppy disk, right?
I've even got the Japanese book here. I've got some lobby cards. I mean,
my goodness.
I've got other stuff, and this is only a tiny bit of it. But yeah, the video game right here. And right inside here, I think for Commodore 64 in the US, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I had a Commodore 64.
I didn't. But now I could retroactively look for one.
There you go.
You can go on YouTube and watch somebody play that game.
I have.
If you've never seen it before.
I love the 8-bit version of Band on the Run while it's playing, and No More Lonely Nights, of course. So yeah,
So
just a couple items there.
You're never going to see this anywhere else, folks. A guy really dedicated to the movie so much.
yep,
Just a
exactly.
little bit, just a tiny bit, and especially
Yep,
the crew jacket is probably this is my possibly the most valuable item that I've got as far as
absolutely.
So
accessories.
rented.
Yep. Um, when you mentioned press conference, a
Yes.
quick story. This is my somewhat connection, but I had a babysitter in the early 80s, obviously, so 84. And her father was a photographer for the Chicago Tribune. And he was assigned to take pictures for an interview that Paul McCartney was doing with Gene Siskel to promote Broad Street at the time. And so Susie, my babysitter, was a massive Beatles fan. And in fact, her brother, one of her brothers, was in a touring company of Beatlemania at the time. So they were hardcore. This was a hardcore Beatles family, a band family. So finally she's like, please can I go with you, Dad, to the so he's like, okay. So she was probably, yeah, she was in high school at the time. So they go down to, I forget which hotel in Chicago. And so there's Paul and Gene Siskel's interviewing him. So she, meets him briefly. And also then like, okay, they gotta get this interview done. So Tony's taking pictures of Paul as Gene's starting to interview him. And apparently, Gene started asking him really obvious questions about the Beatles. I mean, like the same old stuff. I mean, like, did Yoko really break up the Beatles? And, I mean, like really obvious stuff. And Susie started kind of smirking in the background, and Paul saw her, and he started kind of smirking because he knew exactly why she was laughing. And Gene Siskel saw this and was basically like, "Get her out of here."
Well,
And so,
Damn, that's hardcore.
and so Tony said, okay, but could we please just get one picture with my daughter, with Paul, please, and so Paul's like, okay, fine. So, and I tried to find the picture. I have it somewhere, and I couldn't find it before the show tonight. But there's a picture, and her mom gave it to me, of Susie and Paul on this couch. Susie practically looks like she's crawling into his lap, of the two of them together, and then they had to kick her out of the interview. But yeah, this was during the press junket for Broad Street, and yeah, and Gene Siskel was interviewing Paul, but apparently was asking him all the same old questions about the Beatles, and even Paul was like, oh my God.
not much has changed.
No, and not much has changed at all. So that's my
Well,
little Broad Street story.
well, thank you for that, Kit. Thank you, Ed, for showing us some of your goodies that you have. Of course, I'm hoping that later in the year, maybe October, fittingly, maybe we could do a show just on the movie Broad Street. It'll be the anniversary in October, and Ed hopefully will join us for that as well. Okay, because we'll talk about the movie. But the movie, was not well received. As a lot of us know, it didn't really do Paul a lot of favors. Um, but we're going to talk about the music, okay? And before we get to the album, though, let's talk about the single "No More Lonely Nights" that was released in September 24 of '84. And I'm gonna go on a limb and say I bet you nobody here doesn't like the single. Let's talk about the single. Maybe the first time you remember hearing it. If you if you're a younger person and you don't remember, then later on maybe when you heard it. So I always do this because we kind of go in age order. So I'm going to start with you, Ken. Do you you remember? I'm sure you do. You remember when you first heard that, or in the early days, anyway, when you first heard "No More Lonely Nights"? What you
Certainly the
thought?
early days, yeah, and I fell in love with the song instantly. And I was immediately drawn to the lead guitar being played by Dave Gilmour towards the end, and I thought that's really unusual in a Paul McCartney single to have that much lead guitar work and to end the song and fade with that. And I thought that was really cool. And I love the whole melody and Paul's voice on it. And I thought it was one of the strongest ballads he'd put out in his solo career. And I love a lot of his ballads, but I loved it instantly. But one of my strongest memories is that at the time I was doing my Beatles show on WDHA in New Jersey, and that's a rock station there, and they're known for playing rock and roll, and they play the Beatles and they play classic rock. And when it comes to someone like McCartney, they tend to favor the rockers, the Band on the Runs, the Jets, all that. The format's changed a lot since then in a way, but in those days they would play that. And the previous years, Paul's putting out Ebony and Ivory and Say, and all this more poppy stuff, and some songs that would be more fitting to an adult contemporary audience. And the program director, who's the guy who hired me there, he was there on the Sunday morning when around that time when the song was new, and I said to him, "What do you think of No More Lonely Nights?" And he said, Paul's gone adult contemporary." It's like, can't you? It's so impossible to please everybody. I love Paul's ballads a lot, and this one had a bit of an edge to it because you had Dave Gilmour playing all that
Yeah,
the guitar work on it.
really sharp, the stinging.
Yeah, but I loved it instantly, really. I still think it's one of his best ballads in his solo career. I sure wish he would attempt to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, it would have been nice at some point. I loved it immediately. I remember hearing it right away and loving it immediately for the reasons that you stated. And I remember there was a show called Rockline
Mhm.
in New York that used to be on, and it was that they had a show on that on when he was promoting this. I don't remember if it was the whole album or just the song, but I just remember a phone call with some girl saying how excited she was to talk to Paul and how oh, it's so great that it's song those inflections that you only have, only you'll have those. And I remember that's something stick in your mind, and I remember that. And I thought, yeah, I know what she's saying. For myself, I mean, I throw this in. Personally, I was going through a not a good time in my life for a while at that period. That was just starting then. So every time I hear like anything to do with Broad Street, I kind of like think of that. It kind of like gloomy gray period, which actually, even if I had been fine in that period, it is that. It is rainy, gray kind of feeling anyway. So it's not just what I was going through. But I'll throw that in. So that's kind of a feeling that I have when I think of anything Broad Street. Okay, so let's see. Let's go with I'm getting the ages. How about Tom? Uh, do you remember when you first heard it, or the earlier times when you heard it in the beginning?
Yeah, yeah. It was the music video, and I think I was really excited about watching, and I'm kind of glad to watch the video
Oh
over
yeah,
just the song because I think the video for me is what one of the reasons why it's really good. Not that it needed video to be good, because this is for me one of Paul's greatest compositions. This is just fantastic. Doesn't matter what decade, in Paul's career, this is one of the standouts for me. But yeah, watching the video every second I could, and then getting the cassette. Probably in, I think it was 87 or 88. I got the cassette and just played that song nonstop. I'm not the biggest fan of all the different versions, whether the play out or the dance or the sleep along or the hiking version, or all those different versions. That's just a joke. Don't worry. But anyways, I'm not. But that the main song, "No More Lonely Nights" for me is just one of his top tier. It's pure McCartney.
great.
Absolutely.
Well put. In the comments, or I have to. This is just me throwing in my opinion. Somebody says, Black Chub Bear says, "No More Lonely Nights" is a better song than "Spies Like Us." To which Wink 55 says, "Spies Like Us is an embarrassing song. I love Spies Like Us." I just want to say that I love it. I love it. It rocks. Even if he's going, oh well, what do you do? Hey, what do you say? I don't care. It's got great rocking guitar. I just had to say that. But I love No More Lonely Nights as well. All right, Kit. How about you? Your memories?
Oh, this brings back such great memories. I was 12 years old and I, was into top 40 radio and this, was a staple of top 40 radio. I mean, I remember this was played to death. And it was also, as Tom, you were saying, the video was played a lot. Now, this was before Chicago really got cable, and so it was on local video shows. There was one that I would watch after school,
Yes.
and yep. And so this was played every day. I mean, it
Same
really
here.
was. Yep, it really was. And Friday Night Videos on NBC, that was probably played there as well. So I remember seeing the video, and I loved this song. I mean, I really did. I back then I probably didn't think, oh, David Gilmour, great on guitar. I probably wasn't aware of David Gilmour at the time, but I knew I liked, the guitar on it. But I just thought it was just a wonderful pop song. I mean, I just loved Paul's voice on this, and I wasn't super into Paul yet at this point. I mean, I was starting to become aware of his stuff and starting to get to know him through, as we've talked about before, Michael Jackson, and probably was starting to become more aware of him through Say and that kind of thing. And I just love this song instantly from the time I was 12 years old. I just thought it was so beautiful and catchy and even at 12 years old, I thought it was sort of romantic and just I absolutely love it, and I still do. I mean, I still think it's one of my favorite solo songs of his.
It's very impressive. All
Mhm.
right. So Ed,
To
you're up.
uh to steal a quote from our friend.
Tom, you're up.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, no, to steal a quote from our friend Larry Graves, it's a 10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, Ed, now you are up. Am I
All
looking
right.
at you?
Well, Tom, now that you mentioned hiking version, I'm going to have to go looking for that, hiking version, whatever the skiing version,
Yeah.
what, for me, it was MTV as well, to reflect, both Kit and Tom, also fellow Gen X. So that was kind of our primary,
Yep.
a big primary source of music. I do remember hearing on the radio, but specifically, I remember the video on MTV. I remember seeing the promos for the film, the adverts on TV, the trailers. I also remember the giveaway for the car on MTV. I thought that was kind of cool when they were trying to give away the 1955 car that Paul drives in the movie on MTV. I'm like, oh man, that's one piece of memorabilia I wish I had. But I think it did strike a chord with me. And then again, as I said later, when I really went down the rabbit hole, getting the compact disc 1991, that was a big year after the McCartney concert. So just kind of getting it at that point, really building up my collection, and really from the moment, it is my top Paul song.
Really?
Yes,
That's your favorite Paul song?
all time. Yeah,
Oh, that is quite a revelation.
Including the Beatles?
I would say on par with. I'll put it this way: on par with Let It Be, on par with Hey Jude, Yesterday. Maybe I'm Amazed for a solo track. But I'd probably have to say, yeah, number one as far as favorite song ever. Yeah, I would definitely
Wow.
put it up in that high stratosphere compared to a lot of stuff. So yes,
That is quite a fascinating revelation, and good to hear. It's good to hear opinions like that. I like that. Well, okay. Well, all right. So, it turns out that the single got to only number 6 in the USA, but it got to number 2 in the UK. It was almost a number 1 for Paul, right? And then about a month later, give or take, we got the whole soundtrack album in October of 1984. And I was thinking how we go about this. I guess well, I said we do this show called Another Listen because a lot of times these are albums that don't always get recommended by most people. I don't know about it to the top, near the top of the list, and a lot of people they discount it because a lot of fans feel, oh, he redid the Beatles songs and he's redoing songs and this and that. Well, there's some new songs on here as well. We'll talk about all these. Well, first of all, I think we'll talk about let's talk about the the new songs first. How about that? Let's just go through the new songs. That being, of course, what we talked about, "No More Lonely Nights." But then we're talking about "Not Such a Bad Boy." We're talking about "No Values." Am I missing anything? I'm looking at the small
Yeah,
print here.
there's also the instrumental, which is a bonus
Good
track
night, Prince.
CD of
Yep.
Goodnight
Oh,
Lonely Princess.
no, yeah, yeah, which is on this. They have it on this one. You
Okay.
know, it's extended, which is new. We're not talking about stuff like corridor music and things like that, but all right. But let's talk about the new songs first. Now, for me, I'm just going to say in the actual film itself, I'll make a little reference. That's probably my favorite part of the whole movie is when they're doing "Not Such a Bad Boy" and they're doing "No Values" with the band and all that. And we'll talk about "So Bad" and other ones that are redos. But let's go around and find out about some opinions on the new songs. All right, so Kit, let's start with you this time. What do you think of the newer songs?
Not such a bad boy took a while to grow on me. I wasn't crazy about it at first, but over time, I've grown to appreciate it. It's a fun rocker. The chorus is really, catchy, and particularly that part, no more, no more. I mean, it's, it really sticks with you. And I'm not saying it's one of his all-time best, but it possibly could have been a single. With I like the the lead guitar, the kind of fuzz lead guitar from, I believe it's Chris Spedding that did that. I'm not 100% sure. But it has a little bit of a retro rock feel to it. So I do, over the years I've grown to appreciate it a lot more. No Values has, I don't know. No Values has just never really appealed to me as much. I think just the lyrics have just it just are a little repetitive to me. I just the repeating "no values" quite a bit.
Why don't
Um,
you go all the way and sell your granny to the zoo?
yeah, and then there's that.
Yeah. But I love I'll get to one when I get to my turn. Yeah,
I just, I've just never been that insane about it. It's played
might as
well.
well.
I mean, it's played extremely well. You got Ringo on drums. I mean, always a plus. And Paul does, some nice bass on it and all, but it just, it's just not as memorable for me as Not Such a Bad Boy.
Mhm,
I like the other one just sticks in my mind a lot more
mhm.
than that. And then as far as um what's the other one? Good Night, Princess. I of course didn't hear that for years because I of course bought the original LP and it wasn't on there. Didn't hear it for many years, and it's a nice instrumental. It's kind of, again, going back to sort of a music hall sort of sound, and it's nice to hear Paul, saying at the beginning, well, we hope you enjoyed this album as much as we enjoyed making it. And, I mean, it's charming. But I like some of the other music hall things he's done, some other ones that he's done more than this. So but it's pleasant. But I'd say of the new ones, Not Such a Bad Boy is my favorite. Hands
Yeah.
down.
I love Not Such a Bad Boy. I just think it's a really good rocker. And the lyrics, okay, the lyrics aren't great, but like we've said so many times before, when you're rocking to a song, does it really matter? Sometimes I get off on the fact that the lyrics are so weird,
Mm-hmm.
in a rock song, whether it's Junior's
Mm-hmm.
Farm and some of those lyrics, whether
Oh,
it's
sure.
Bebop Alula, whatever it is
Yeah.
Tutti Frutti.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really I like it. I really love the scene in the movie, and I like the song. No Values is one that took a while for me. I don't think I was wild about it when it first came out, but it grew on me pretty quick,
Mm-hmm.
and now I really like it. And there's a good, even though the lyrics are kind of all over the place, I do like the line about, I might get it a little wrong with something about get a hold of my psychiatrist. He's making money out of making me laugh. I like that. That's good. It's a good line. So I have fun with it. I got to tell you, I was just supposed to be listening to this for the show, another listen. Now, I did play this album on one of my rides. I had a long ride, and probably in September or something like that. So I kind of had a fresh reevaluation of it, but I don't remember. Good Night Princess. Some fan I am. I really can't tell you anything about it, in my opinion. So I'm gonna just like bow out of this one gracefully here. I know how to get out of it gracefully, okay? But how do you get out of it gracefully? That's the question.
Well, and as
So
I
I'm
said,
gonna,
I didn't hear it for years. I
you
mean,
know.
I didn't know about it for years because, I was used to the regular album version.
So what do I know, right? Yeah, the vinyl. Yeah. All right, Tom. How about you? Tell us about what your opinion on the newer stuff that's on this at the time, the new songs.
Yeah. Well, again, sorry for my internet connection, but the highlight of those two songs is the lineup. Chris Spedding, Dave Edmonds, Ringo, Paul, Linda. That I think for me would have been a great touring band. He had talked, around those years about going back out on the road, and I think that would have been a kick-ass lineup for a tour. But other than that, I mean, the songs I think are fine, but they're not some of his best rockers. Now, I really do appreciate. Is it "Goodnight Little Princess" or "Goodnight Princess"? I forgot.
On here it says "Good Night,
Good night,
Princess."
Princess. Yeah.
When the CD first came out, it read "Good Night, Lonely Princess."
Right, right.
Other
Yeah, where did I
times,
see
"Good Night,
that?
Princess."
Yeah, on here
But
it says. Yeah. Oh, yours
yeah,
is the other
okay,
one. Okay.
yeah. But I've come to really, I've said this before. I've come to really appreciate his classical stuff. I'm sure we'll get into Eleanor's Dream as well because that's for me is another highlight on the album. Well, actually CD because they only play a minute of it on the album, unfortunately. But other than that, yeah, I think the lineup for those two songs for me is the highlight.
I agree, Tom. I mean, it is like you think it would have been a little better than it was.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Okay, Ed. How about you?
I'm going to go a little bit reverse with this one, probably from other folks. Being totally contrarian here, right? But No Values, I kind of gravitated towards immediately, and I remember Paul in an interview saying it's one of the second or one of the few dream songs he had about dreaming about. Well, yeah, the Rolling Stones are performing this one. In the dream he wakes up, No Values, and he goes, wait, they don't have a song like that. He goes, oh, I better write it before Mick claims a copyright or something like that.
Yeah.
So No Values I always enjoyed, especially the guitar, the guitar solo, which I think should have kept going, instead of that kind of that interruption. That's me personally. That's why I like the film version a little bit better, a little bit longer on that. Rocks along nicely, not such a bad boy. Same thing, it rocks along nicely. And you know what? I do also enjoy the warehouse sequence the best. That is one of my
Oh,
favorite parts of the film, and I rewatch that quite often. As far as the album, this has gotten a lot of airplay from me over the years. So yeah, I'd have to disqualify myself on the re-listening category. But yeah, I kind of enjoy them a bit more in reverse. But I think two very solid songs in my view, two very good songs. And No Values, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were working on it with the 1979 incarnation of Wings.
Mm.
There's actually a little bit of version I have in somewhere in the archives where it kind of sounds a little bit different that they're working on it at that time period, which is kind of nice to hear as well.
Yeah, I think there were rehearsals in 1980 with the band.
Mhm.
With the
Yeah.
Yep.
I had a videotape of some Wings rehearsals once, and I don't remember what everything they were doing there. That's interesting. That's a good tidbit. Okay, Kenny, you?
Well, for the longest time, the biggest highlight of this album were the new songs. And it could still very much be that way. But I instantly love the two rockers, Not Such a Bad Boy and No Values. It just took a few listens before they were stuck in my head. And I don't get all crazy about, Paul's lyrics and being super critical of them, because some of my favorite songs of his have very silly lyrics. I love Big Barn Bed. I love Soily. You know, you read the lyrics of those songs. Do you really understand the meaning of some of those songs. But still, I sing along with them, and they're both very catchy. They're both very edgy. And I think Tom, you said this. I would love to have seen Paul tour with that band, to have Chris Spedding, to have Dave Edmunds and Ringo, Linda, throw in Eric Stewart. What a killer band that would have been. And they sound so good doing those two rockers right there. And I could even, because I know what you were saying there, Ed, about Paul saying that he dreamed No Values and hearing Mick Jagger sing it. I can hear Mick Jagger sing the chorus. Well, you ain't got no values. You get to see him doing that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I love both those songs. Is it top tier McCartney? I don't know. I love it as much as so many other rockers in his solo career. Um, I also want to say Eleanor's Dream, I think, is absolutely brilliant. I wish I knew more about the collaboration there between Paul and George Martin. How much did George Martin write as far as Eleanor's Dream is concerned? How much was Paul? There's very little that's known about that. I know I asked Luca Perassi about that since he put out the book on Paul, and he himself didn't really know for sure. And Paul really hasn't spoken about that, but it's variations on Eleanor Rigby, and some of that music's absolutely beautiful, like its own separate classical piece of music, and it's gorgeous. It really is. Um, I also have to say I love the play-out version of No More Lonely Nights. I think it's absolutely brilliant when you can take the same sets of lyrics and have a whole different melody around it, and it really works as a dance track there. Now, a lot of people that don't like when Paul does his dance stuff probably wasn't crazy about this, but I thought it was really clever of him. Um, and Goodnight Lonely Princess, or Lonely Princess, whatever it's called, um, is really a shining moment for me, because I love when Paul does that 1930s, 1940s style music. This is strictly an instrumental. I've always said that I could have heard this on Lawrence Welk's TV show, you know, and the melody just fits that style. And it just goes to show how musically eclectic Paul is, that he can master so many different styles there. And that's just like a bonus track that he puts on the CD. It was actually used in that one scene towards the end where Paul is talking to Sir Ralph Richardson. It's being played on the radio, but you don't hear the whole thing. But I think that it's so brilliant what he did there with that instrumental. I wish there was more of that stuff coming from Paul. You know, could have fit on Kisses on the Bottom. Put some instrumental songs on Kisses on the Bottom because it fits that style so well. So the new stuff I thought was a real treasure there. And like I said, No More Lonely Nights, one of his best ballads in his solo career. Yeah, so all those songs I really treasure.
And before I forget about lyrics again, I love follow the leader into a tent. Nobody told me that she owed some rent. I love the way he sings it, and I love it. It's like love it. If it was something that was really profound, I wouldn't have liked it as much. So I love that part. So okay, now I guess we'll go. Look, we try to read comments at the same time. Hard to do, to read everybody's
Yeah,
remarks.
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to say real quick with Goodnight Princess. Yeah, very, very, very much in the style that something his father would have listened to. And Eleanor's Dream, it's kind of like coupled with Eleanor Rigby. Yeah, a nice enough piece. Maybe not my personal favorite, but it is wonderfully written. Sorry, I forgot about those two, but
Well, that's okay. It happens. It happens. All right, now we're gonna go for the songs that are, I guess, redos, covers of his own stuff. And I remember him once saying, like, well, why shouldn't I be able to sing them? Something like that. People were saying you shouldn't do them. And Ringo was not really thrilled with the idea, right, of playing again on the covers. And I think maybe because maybe he felt like he maybe wasn't doing as well. He's already done his performance of certain things. I remember Paul once saying that "Hey Jude" was supposed to be in. I think it was the medley part at near the beginning. I remember him talking about this. The director had it set for me to do "Hey Jude," and Ringo wasn't wild about doing that, especially. So, and I remember Paul saying, "Well, saying that pretty much about Ringo." He figured, "Well, I did my performance on "Hey Jude," where I'm great and everything." He's speaking for Ringo, you know. But I remember him saying, "But I think maybe he was afraid maybe he wouldn't do it as well." He said it politely, like that. And I remember that stuck in my mind. For me, I mean, I want you guys to go really, and not me say it, but I do love I have no problem with that medley. I love everything in there that he does, and I forget. I'm not really prepared as well as I should be. I guess yes, it starts with yesterday, then he goes into here, there, and everywhere, which has different lyrics at times in it. He says, right,
Yes.
I need a love of
Yeah.
my own,
Yes.
and like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Love I love it, and I love Wanderlust. Uh, even though I love the Tug of War album version, love Wanderlust here. I think it's great the way you see all the musicians. They got the horns and they're playing along, and it kind of ends with that. A big finish in that scene. That's another of my favorite scenes. You know, I could do without the producer saying to fit the plot about yesterday and everything. Paul singing yesterday. He says very bloody appropriate. The guy says in the middle of the song. You know, didn't need that, but that's not on the record. Right? We're talking about the record. So anyway, but I just wanted to get that in. I won't talk about the others, but let's go. Let's start with Ed this time. Ed, um, tell us like what you like as far as covers go. You got the Beatles, but you also have McCartney with doing Wing stuff. In his own
Well,
solo.
just to show off a couple other ones I had the sealed tug of war ready to go, and I even had the sealed pipes of peace ready to go. So I was coming prepared today with the hype stickers. But we'll go with the album. So as heard on those two there. Yesterday, again, perfectly fine. I think if I'm going to choose between yesterday or the original version, I'm going to give the edge to the original version. For obvious reasons, it's very enjoyable. Here, there, and everywhere, about a tie between that, the revolver version and this. I do like the little lyrical twist on that he does on this version here. Wanderlust, again, I could almost go with a tie between this and the tug of war version, but maybe I would give a slight nod to the tug of war version. But again, a very well done version. His voice is in fine form. Do you want me to keep going with all the other tracks as well, or we
Well, just yeah, if you want to go, whatever you want to do it. I mean, yeah, we'll just go
I
down
could, I
the
could, I
list.
definitely want to save it because I'd love to hear other folks' takes on other
But
tracks.
I don't want to get mixed up. So
Oh, okay.
a hard enough time. So let's just do you one at a time. So yeah, so ballroom dancing. By the way, I love Tug of War's ballroom dancing. So that's
Mm.
my favorite. But I like the one here too. On here a lot too. On this album, the soundtrack album. Well, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I like the little lyrical twist he adds on that.
Yeah, it's different lyrics.
Yeah, a little bit. There's you know, the man's oh god, now I'm gonna be blanking on it because I'm right here, right? But
Riding on a rocket, is that one of them? When you're
no,
riding
right,
on a
or
rocket?
the man's his wife. Now the girl has grown and the man's his wife, and they've flown off to a better life. That type of thing. They kind of fill out what happens to the story afterwards.
Story.
Like this little tiny, two or three sentences I want to say on that one. Really well done. I do like the this version. I think I do like a little bit better with kind of the guitar snarling a little bit. And again, whenever I see the movie, I picture that video as it were in my head. So I think I do prefer this one just a little bit more over the Tug of War version, but both amazing songs with ballroom dancing.
And we'll continue. How do you feel about silly love songs? No, it's all right in my opinion, but
Okay, here we
I
go.
think the original.
Controversial opinion. I love it.
Oh
I
my!
actually, there's something about that bass slap that really does it for me.
Look
So
at the time.
It's the break. It's the break dance scene. That's what
it's
it
the
feels like.
breakdance scene. I do,
That's what
I
gets me
I do
going.
love it. I do love it. You know, I don't know if I could outrank the original version, but it's up there. It would be a very close second. I really do love. I enjoy this version a lot.
And what about so bad?
So bad, nice enough. I think, Eric Stewart and, again, they're in the warehouse sequence. They do a fine version of that. Um, Probably the Pipes of Peace version, maybe a tiny bit more, but again, both very well done. I would say, I could swap both of them easily with So Bad. And let me see here.
For no one.
For No One, mm, for No One, I'd probably have to give a little bit of the edge to the Revolver version. Again, nicely done. Uh, Eleanor Rigby, Eleanor's Dream. Eleanor Rigby, I do like. Obviously, the original version is gonna, gonna be a bit better for obvious reasons. I think. Again, it ties into Eleanor's Dream. That that particular part might be sort of my least favorite of the film itself, but I know we're just going with the record itself. So I mean, nicely done. Nicely done. Predates Liverpool Oratorio definitely by 6 or 7 years or whatever it was. Long and Winding Road, controversial opinion, but yeah, I actually do like it. I like the sax on it, so
Yeah.
it's a very 80s sound. I know. As I see Thomas, don't throw anything.
We'll
Thomas.
get there. We'll get there.
Giving you the skunk eye, Ed.
Yeah,
We'll get there. I'm going to be anxious. I'm going to give Tom more time to rest his voice a little bit. All right. So Ken, it's up to you. You don't have to necessarily go through everyone, but if you want, whatever, however you want to handle it. What's your favorites? It's up to you.
Well, let me just say that when it comes to um, performing songs in concert, I think that most fans like when you stick with the same arrangements to the songs. But for me, if you're going to redo your songs as studio recordings, to make it worth your while, I would want something different to be done to the arrangement somewhat so that there's something to look forward to instead of doing a straight copy of what it was like before. So in most cases, I've enjoyed all these cover versions. Um, and I listened to the sound to this album, the CD, all the way through today. And even though I listen to the songs every now and then, all the way through, I haven't done for quite a while. Give My Regards to Broad Street is probably the album from Paul that I've listened to the least, mainly because of the fact that there's a lot of covers on there. So there isn't as much to look forward to. But I was really surprised how much I enjoyed these covers so much more now than I did before. I think his voice really was in great shape throughout this entire album. And when I'm talking about different arrangements, probably the one disappointment for me would be Good Day Sunshine, because that version is an exact replica of what the Beatles did. It is nice, but he let George Martin do the piano solo since he did it on the Beatles version. So he's doing it on this version. So I like the fact that, gave a nod to George Martin there. But it's interesting to hear that Paul does all the harmonies on Good Day Sunshine, but it's not like you're going to hear that and say it's so much better than the Beatles version. You shouldn't have to compare every version. As long as it's worth your while to listen to these newer versions, then that's fine in and of itself for me. I do love the whole medley of Yesterday, Here, There, and Everywhere, and Wanderlust. Those three songs flow together really well. Also, we should point out that the Philip Jones Brass Ensemble plays the horns on this version as they did on the Tug of War version. And again, I think Wanderlust is pretty close between the Tug of War version and this version. But still, I like the fact that those three songs were just segged together as a medley that works together really well. For No One, I found really interesting because instead of having a piano on there, it's on acoustic guitar with strings. So it has a whole different vibe to it. I find I like that version a lot. I can't say it's better than the Beatle version. It doesn't matter. It's just another way of listening to that song. And I really enjoy that version a lot. The Long and Winding Road, I love a lot. I love the sax, like Ed was saying before. It's a very, I don't know if you should call it Vegas-y version of the Long and Winding Road, but that's a song that Paul has done a lot of different versions of, and I love every arrangement because the song is just so strong. And I love his high voice towards the end of the song and the last verse, and how the song doesn't have the same ending. It kind of suspends there at the very end. Something very different right there. Silly love songs. I absolutely love it. It's so completely different from the version from 1976. I like the fact that it's danceable. I like the fact that you've got Louis Johnson on there doing the slap bass. For those of you that don't know, he was part of the Brothers Johnson and was also on Thriller. He played on the Thriller album from Michael Jackson. And I love the slap bass part on there. And I also like the fact that um, he actually modulates in the song. He goes up in key, which he rarely ever does in any of his music. It's a lot faster. It's such a different version from the original. Again, it gives me more reason to sink my teeth into this instead of trying to do just the same thing. Um, what else? I love Eleanor Rigby and Eleanor's Dream, like I said before. Am I missing anything?
I'm looking. I think that
It's so
might be the
bad.
last one.
So bad.
So bad
Oh,
is
so
very,
bad.
it's
Sorry.
very close to the Pipes of Peace version. It's a little bit more harmonies, a little bit more lush. Um, I like it, but it's not that different from the Pipes of Peace version. But the versions that are different are the ones that I enjoy the most. So, yeah, and ballroom dancing, I love the fact that Paul added that extra verse towards the end. And it's God, the tug of war version is so good. And on the Broad Street version, his vocals are a little bit more distant, like he's not right on the mic, so it has more of a live feel to it. So I like that aspect of it. Um, can't say which one I like better, but I think a fine job was done on ballroom dancing. I wish that he had done more solo music, covers of solo and not as much Beatles. But yet now, having listened to it today, I like this album so much more than I ever have because I
Yes.
really always clung on to the new songs more than anything else. I always liked the covers, but now I really like them even more than I ever have before.
All right. Thank you, Ken. All right, Tom. What's your take
All
on these
right.
songs?
Thanks for the break, Ken. I appreciate it. Uh, well, I'm going to try to get through this as best as I can. A lot of people will credit the '89 tour for Paul accepting his Beatles past. I disagree. This album is Paul accepting his Beatles past. And if you read the Musician magazine from 1980, he says that dressing up as Beatle Paul in the coming up video made him realize that, hey, you know, I should be proud of what I did. And, that being said, I don't think necessarily everything is kosher on this album. But for instance, I love me some '80s sax solos. Love me '80s sax solos. But on the long and winding road, it does not belong. I'm sorry. And then also, I think the medley is nice. I do like how it goes to one last and closes that out. I do like the the late or I'm sorry, the early '80s tug of war pipes of peace remixes. I do like So Bad for a longest time. So Bad from Broad Street was my version. I listened to that cassette all the time, mainly because of that song, So Bad. Um, Silly Love Songs. This is a case where I think if you see the movie, the song, I think it gels, but when you're just listening to the album and not watching the movie, I don't think the song necessarily works for me. Just like I think Eleanor's Dream doesn't work for Joe. Um, however, I think it doesn't work in the film either. I don't think that dream sequence in the movie is anywhere as good as Eleanor's Dream. Okay. Or Eleanor Rigby, the song, is he singing it in a different key? When he does the lonely people, does it sound like he's
I don't think so.
to me, to my ears, it sounds like he's singing it lower. I think he's singing it lower, but it's not as in bass as the Revolver version. But all in all, I think as a man who had one of the most successful 14-year solo career leading up to this album, I stopped to wonder if he was pressured in including Beatles songs, or was it just the fact that he was finally accepting his past and wanting to revisit those songs, which is fine with me. I have no problem with it. It just, for my ears, not all of them gel together. However, like I said, I do really like the sorry, the Pipes of Peace and Tug of War stuff that was released on this album, or remade. And this started a trend as well. A lot of artists, a lot of peers of McCartney started redoing songs of their own. I remember when Eric Clapton released his box set, he did a remake of After Midnight. I think Rod Stewart on his box set did a remake of Mandolin Wind. So other people started remaking their early or redoing their early classics. But all in all, again, the solo stuff for me is the standout, except for Silly Love Songs.
All right. Well, that was a good point you brought up about Paul, embracing his Beatles past with this album, really, more in a way, more, I mean, than ever.
Can
You
I
know,
just say something
Yeah.
about this? I think
Yeah.
Paul was always proud of his Beatle past.
Nobody says he's not proud
Right.
of it. We're not going to have a repeat of last show.
No, I just want to say
Let's
that,
say he was ashamed of it. He just didn't play as much of it.
well, in the 70s, he felt he had to prove himself on his own. He didn't want to have to rely on it. That's all. And by the end of the
Yeah,
70s,
but
if you look at all the success he had in the 70s, he didn't have to prove himself anymore. So it's fine
right.
to embrace, the past and start to,
Well, I understand that, but
I can't hardly hear you.
yeah,
yeah, but Vic Garbarini, for the interview, he was
right.
talking about the Beatles. If that came through or not, I'll again for the connection.
So something about it's okay again or
Come
something.
through.
Did
Can
he
you
say
hear me now?
Very
it
choppy.
felt good?
I think
In and out.
It felt good
Right. Well,
wearing this suit as Beetle
the
Paul.
yeah, I know. The Right, the conductor of this interview, Vic Garbarini, before the interview was said not to talk about the Beatles.
Oh,
So
wow.
that right there kind of tells me that he still wasn't completely there yet.
Mm.
But this is the interview that you know, everybody says, and that's the McCartney interview from 1980.
Yeah,
Right,
which
1980, I think it
is
came
on
out
the record. The
from
record that
Columbia.
came out, the
Mhm.
McCartney interview
Right.
record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
yeah, and I remember like I get this on my channel a lot with comments. People say, "Oh, well, Paul, has really embraced his past, and so has Ringo." I said, "Look," and John and George didn't. Well, I said, "Well, they didn't live long enough." Well, George eventually got better at it too, playing in Japan and playing a lot of Beatles tracks. John didn't have as much of a chance. He was gone too early. But I always tell them there was a point when Paul too, maybe around then, wasn't as eager to do as many half of his show, three quarters of his show Beatles, right, like he does now. He didn't do that in rock show. He didn't, he played Beatles songs, but it wasn't predominantly Beatles. Who knows if John had been alive? Who knows what he would if he was playing in 2015? What he might have done in a concert? He might have played a lot more Beatles than he did playing "Just Come Together" or "Go Back in the Past" just once. you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, yeah, they had it. Ringo too. Ringo told people, "Don't ask me about the Beatles." We get, he's on not Dick Cavett, Merv Griffin, and everything, and trying to promote Caveman. All they want to talk about is the Beatles, and he used to get really sour about it. Now
Mhm.
he's look at Ringo. He's all too happy to revel in his past with the Beatles now, right? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as long
I
as you
think,
talk about his current project too at the same time. He's
You got to
yeah,
do that too. You got to do that.
that's true.
You got to do that. Well, I wanted to say before I let you go, Kit, that you have your turn. Tom, you mentioned Eleanor's Dream, and I think you said something amidst the internet problems. I think I heard you say something about how I didn't really care for Eleanor's Dream. I've said that before. In the movie, to me, it's just
Right.
excruciatingly long. It just goes on and on and off.
Mm.
Something about it, but the music piece, I love. I love the music. I just feel that the scene goes on too long in the movie. That's all. And Long and Winding Road, I have the opposite to you, Tom. You were saying about the saxophone doesn't work in that song or whatever, right? Whereas you had said that sometimes it actually, what did you say is the one that works in the movie? Silly Love Songs, was it? You said Silly Love Songs works in the movie
Yeah, Silly Love Songs, that version works in the movie
for
because of
you?
what's going on in that segment. Yeah, because of what's going
Well,
on in
that's
that
how I
segment.
feel about the sax in Long and Winding Road. I like how it plays in the movie. I like it in the movie, the sax effect.
Fair enough.
You
Yeah.
know. But anyway, all right, Kit, your turn.
Okay. Well, it's interesting how, your views of an album change over time. Because, when I was, as I said, when I was listening to this when I was 12, I mean, I think I wore this album out. I played this a lot. I still have my copy. And so some of the songs like Silly Love Songs, I used to love that version and all, but then as I got more and more into the fandom and I started listening to more and more of the albums and hearing the originals, because some of this I really realized as I was working on this episode tonight. I thought, wow, some of these were actually like I heard some of the versions of these songs first before I heard the originals. So I mean,
Right.
it was interesting to think about that. But anyway, yeah. Some of the versions, like I've always actually liked this version of the Broad Street version of Ballroom Dancing a little better than the Tug of War version. I felt like, as you guys have been saying, like the extra lyrics. I like the extended guitar solo, a little bit extended in the middle. And I don't know, this one has it's just by a hair that I like this version better. Just has a little more energy to me, and to this day, now when I hear the original version, I'm waiting for Wave the Sword, and that's it, kids. And
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah. That
took
part
me
in
a
the movie,
while.
the
Took
movie,
me a while to get used to
and he
that.
gives the kid the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And at the end, lunch,
Yeah, yeah.
all that stuff. But besides all that, I've just always liked this version a little better. Wanderlust, as you said, I'd say it's about even. This version is beautiful too. And I'd say that's So Bad. Now this version, this is another one where I didn't hear this version of So Bad for many years because it was not on the LP. They cut that too. So I would give definitely the edge to the Pipes of Peace. I like the original much better. I don't know. You were saying, Ken, that you thought the harmonies were a little lusher on the Broad Street version, and I thought they sounded lusher on the Pipes of Peace version to me. I don't know why. I just for some reason I don't know. It just sounded a little bit of a fuller sound on Pipes of Peace. I'm not sure why, but I like that. Now, Silly Love Songs. I have a couple of things to say about that. So, I used to like this version as much as the original version, and listening to it now, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it was trying to update the sound of Silly Love Songs to fit the time, the 80s. And I don't know. I take what you say, Tom, now that you say that, watching it in the film, I think you're right that it makes more sense when you watch it than when you just listen to it. However, I should add though, I mean, it's amazing how many musicians involved in that. I mean, it was like a Quincy Jones fest. I mean, it was,
Right.
members of Toto, Louis
Right.
Johnson, as you mentioned, one of the greatest bassists of all time. That solo, that slap bass solo is just incredible, as you guys have talked about. Um, I mean, great musicians involved on that track. I kind of wondered if that was maybe a result of the, maybe the girls' mind sessions. I just wonder if they got hooked up somehow from that. I don't know, because I mean that's straight from the Quincy Jones playbook, so I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, so I think it's good. I Is it better than the original? I don't know. But it just sounds like it was trying to update it. As far as the Beatles covers go, I know you guys have talked about them extensively, so I'm not going to go into too much depth in them. But some of them, better than the others. I used to like Long and Winding Road more than I do now. The sax, I kind of agree with you, Joe. It fits in the film.
The film.
Yeah, because I agree with that. It fits the scene, that sax
Yeah.
does. I mean, that fits the scene. I don't know. And I do, Ken, you talked about the ending. I've always liked the ending of this version. I like that, how it trails off in that kind of unresolved chord. I've liked that as well. The rest of it, is it better? No. I don't think it beats the original at all. And in fact, parts of it are a little closer to the Phil Spector version with the chorus, the choir, I should say. There's a choir in there. It's like, isn't that a little closer to the Phil Spector arrangement that Paul said he didn't like?
Yeah, right. I thought that. Yeah.
That's a little strange. So I mean that's kind of an odd choice. And some of the others, I mean, for No One, Yesterday, I mean, they're nice versions. Were they necessary to remake? And I don't know. I mean, it is kind of a mystery, as you were saying, Tom. Why did he feel he needed to remake them? That's a valid question. Was it?
I remember him saying, again, these things you have in your mind from interviews, that
Yeah.
he told the director, he gave him a list of songs that he'd be happy to sing.
Mm-hmm. And
If you
the
wanted,
director picked them out.
yeah, that's
Okay.
what I would recall.
Okay, so that makes sense. So, and if I ever get to interview him, I would love to know why he changed some of the lyrics to Here, There, and Everywhere. I mean, it's fine, I guess,
Yeah,
but I
I
just
wonder
wondered,
about
I
that
need a love of
sometimes.
my own. I always wanted to know why.
Hmm.
Why? I mean, it's not bad, but it's so.
Maybe he thought that's how it went. I
Yeah,
wonder, like, do they remember as well as we do? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
who knows? I just,
He must know.
I just always been fascinated by that. So, yeah. So, I mean, the remakes, some work better than others, I would say, but were they better than the original, with maybe the exception of Ballroom Dancing? And not really. I wouldn't say. So I just don't know. But they're not worse
They
for
don't have
sure.
to be, but yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with Ken.
Was this one of the times that he changed the order of the writing credits?
I don't know.
Do you know?
That's
I
a good
don't know.
question.
I
Now
don't
you
think
got.
Let's check.
I thought the
Shall we?
first time was the live album, one of the live
I
albums.
Yeah, I
thought
don't
so.
know if he
Yeah.
America.
did. Hold on. I should know this, right?
Yes.
Yes,
I know,
Mr.
right?
Broadstreet.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Broadstreet's slacking tonight. Oh my god.
Shame
Hold
on you.
Broad
Went out from
Street.
the CD version and
Yeah, it's saying Lennon McCartney here.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's one thing that's
Very
really
good.
interesting about this album?
Mm-hmm.
You take a look at all the musicians' credits. Paul plays very little bass.
That's true. Good
He-
point.
Rockers on No Values and Not Such a Bad Boy and So Bad. Yeah, but otherwise he gets Herbie Flowers to play bass on No More Lonely Nights. John Paul Jones plays the bass on Ballroom
Yeah.
Dancing.
That's right.
Yeah. So he doesn't mind letting someone else, a very talented, kind of like what he did with Stanley Clarke, in a way, on Tug of War and Pipes of Peace. So
Yeah, that's kind of like about the same time David Bowie with the Tonight album. He kind of let the musicians. He didn't play guitar on it. He just like, all right, yeah, go for it, and just.
You should have let somebody else write the movie.
Oh.
Ouch.
Oh.
Oh,
I'm looking
Oh.
Save that for the anniversary edition.
Yeah, let's
it
save
just
that.
came naturally. It just seemed to
Oh
fit
man.
there.
Speaking of guitar, the lead guitar on Ballroom Dancing, the Ringo, is incredible. I don't know if that's Chris Spedding or Dave Edmonds. I thought that was great. Whoever played guitar on that. It's great. And I also forgot to mention, Ken
they're
mentioned,
on.
I like the play out version of No More Lonely Nights.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Ken.
I was going to say other versions. I mean, I'm not familiar with. I got to tell you, even though I collect a lot of these things, I'm not familiar with all. I know I don't care for the play out version. too much, you know.
Yeah, I like
But
it. It's fun for the dance floor. Yeah.
you know, extended version, special dance mix, play out version. They get like a whole bunch of versions.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know all of them, but
You know,
the hiking version's a banger. Tom's
Yeah,
right.
I'm looking out for that one. To answer your question, kid, if I could read the small print here, that's the problem. Chris Stedding on guitar and Dave Edmonds on bass.
Oh, he was on bass. Oh,
That's what it says according to
okay. Okay, so
Ballroom
Chris,
Dancing.
Oh, okay.
okay, so what's Chris on lead? Okay, great. He did an amazing job.
You mentioned silly love songs. It's Steve Lukather on there.
Yes. Yep.
really.
Yes, indeed.
Wow, I should have studied these because
We should,
interesting
we
stuff.
should also mention, that he gave Dave Edmonds the song "On the Wings of a Nightingale" for the Everly Brothers during this time as
Correct.
well. So very
That's
busy
right.
man.
One of the best songs Paul's written for another artist.
Indeed.
Yes.
I if there's anything else anybody wants to talk about that I may have forgotten regarding the album, the music in the movie, or the soundtrack album, itself, anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just from I don't know if we're doing overall kind of ratings yet or anything, but
Go ahead.
I know, for me, it's actually, to me, I consider this an essential album. It's kind of the bridge from Paul's more, let's say, hit-making top 10 days, a couple exceptions notwithstanding with, Spies Like Us and things like that. This is the last album to have a legitimate US top 10 hit on it. And I think it is kind of that bridge between, somewhat the earlier mid solo years to now what we have with the later solo years, the post 85 career. And it's kind of a similar story, kind of with, whenever I've listened to some Bowie stuff, who's probably my third favorite artist after Beatles and Rolling Stones. Sort of the same thing, like you get that pre 1985 kind of, a lot of hits in a row, and then post 1985, maybe not so much commercial success as far as at least having a top 10 hit. But I think the album flows very well together. I really think people should give it a second listen, as you all have. I think it really comes together well, pun intended.
I mean, I can enjoy it definitely when I played it in September with a cold car ride. I definitely enjoyed it. I hadn't played it in a long time. I think as Ken said, I mean, this is not one I play very often. But for me personally, I mean, I wouldn't put it in as essential for me. It's certainly fun. It's harmless. It's good to listen to. It's not bad at all. But yeah, it wouldn't be essential for me. And we go around. Anybody have any thoughts on this? Anybody?
Well,
Tom,
yeah.
Kit.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I was just saying, I think Ed.
No,
Oh no,
go ahead.
okay. I was
Sorry.
just going to say, I just wanted to jump off what Ed was saying. I think you're absolutely right that it represents this, like the last, with the exception of Spies Like Us, but if we're talking like album, because that's more, that was a single. In terms of albums, I mean, this is sort of the last of particularly in the US, of the like top 10 albums and single, kind of LPs, and so it's definitely like the last of that. And as far as me personally, I mean, it brought back a lot of great memories listening to it, and and it does have some gems on there. I probably would agree with you, Joe. It's not like essential listening for me, but it does have, I mean, No More Lonely Nights is
Oh yeah, well
one of his best.
that song. I thought forget that's one of his best songs.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of his best.
I think we agree there.
Yeah, the play out version, I think is a lot of fun. I mean, it made that the essential track, but it's a lot of fun. And as I said, it does mark this the last part of this sort of the pop hit kind of stage of his career.
Yeah. I mean, there was pretty much a role reversal here with the UK compared to the US. I mean, this album went to #1 in the UK, where, I mean, I don't even think what did this do, Ken, in the charts for album?
21.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I didn't
I mean,
wow, how did I miss that? Oh no, I had it written down.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm
We
sorry.
All Stand Together was the we all
We
we all
also
stand together was a top
number 2.
10 hit in the UK for Paul.
Yeah.
Right.
Once Upon a Long Ago was a top hit. All the Bats went to number 1 in the UK. Flowers in the Dirt number 1 in the UK. It was getting 10 times more success
Hmm.
in the other
Yeah, he's getting
land
frozen.
than
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, Paul has done really well in the UK.
Yeah.
I think that his fans are pretty loyal, and his albums chart fairly high, sometimes at number 1, usually somewhere in the top 5. And here, I think a lot of it has to do with the marketing. All the fans go out and buy it very quickly, a new album within a couple of weeks, and then it dies a quick death. But it's funny overall, the Beatles as solo artists have had more success in the United States than any other country. But yet, Paul still, I think the fans in the UK, for some reason, they still admire him enough to always place his new albums very high. Although, let's face it, the last few McCartney albums here in the US charted high, but died a quick death, like Egypt Station and McCartney 3. Yeah, but it's something though about the UK. I'm really happy that Paul continues to have that success there.
Yeah.
Now, I do want, I don't see what you all think. I'm sure you'll weigh in. An archive edition. First, I'll take London Town and Back to the Egg. Let's get but at some point, I'd like to get an archive edition of this with the movie. I really want a high definition, reworked movie version too.
Sure.
And I'm sure Ed is not going to disagree with that, right, Ed? Definitely, because I just have that Fox DVD, I think it is, right? I don't even know if it's in the right aspect ratio. Is it wide? Like is it?
Flip
I
it
don't
over
remember.
on the B side, there's the full screen, and then if you flip it over on the other side, it should be the more proper aspect ratio.
Yeah, I'd like to see that get a better treatment. What does everybody think? I mean, speaking, I have the attitude, I'll take it. Or do you want it? Do you look
Well,
forward to? There could be a lot of interesting stuff on there. Like they're always, who knows, different takes of songs and things like that.
Sure.
100%. Yeah. Well, I mean, you knew I was going to say that, right?
Yeah.
But 100%. They can come to me if they want to. And I remember Paul or Tom from an earlier interview we once did. I would not do it for free. I would do it for a fee and maybe a couple autographs and some stuff.
You're going to be the
What version do you
consultant.
want it on? But I would love to hear, like, let's just go over a quick wish list, right? A demo of No More Lonely Nights, take one, and maybe then a middle take of, like, what it sounded in between, not quite the finished version. The same with the other new songs. I'd love to hear Hey Jude. I think they might have rehearsed Band on the Run, if I remember it correctly, for one of the tracks as one of the covers. If there's any other unreleased songs from this time period that they didn't do. The movie, of course, a nice book to go along with it, with all the different memorabilia. It illustrates the 7-inch, of No More Lonely Nights, the 12-inch, the picture disc. Paul's recollections, he does refer to it in the lyrics book with No More Lonely Nights. He says, oh yeah, the film's a fun little caper. Somewhere along that, there's like a quote there. So I thought, maybe if he has a little better memory of the film as opposed to when it first came out, it was not a commercial success. That's an objective fact. I would have loved for it to be the opposite, but
took 5 years to get out of it.
no,
I couldn't resist.
During
yeah, true.
During the all the press tours, he described it as a good night out.
He did a lot, like he did so many times for so many things, right? He did a lot of promotion.
Oh yeah.
Johnny Carson.
Yes.
Yep. He had the birthday cake. Was that the one when he had the birthday cake?
Oh yeah, that's right.
For Johnny, he gave Johnny a birthday cake. I think it was.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Did a
It
lot
would
of
have helped if he had performed a song like Nights on the show instead of You Are My Sunshine, and
yeah.
do a full version.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, didn't he at first do a very short drunken version of yesterday,
Yes.
which I think is
And that's the thing. I mean, there's there's a wonderful unofficial box that I have of, of course I would have it of 1984, and it's all put together. So even something like that, kind of a little background leading up to it. I would welcome it. I would welcome that with Press to Play as a double bill, along with the obvious London tag, London Town, and Back of the Egg. But just me.
all righty.
Hey, I'd sign me up.
So yeah, all right. So I think that's it. Oh, we got something. Maybe it's not it.
Oh, I think
I'm leaving. I'm
Oh,
out.
he's got. He is.
All right,
he's
Tom. Sweet
getting-
dreams,
I'm
sweet
done.
Prince. Good
Feel
night,
better
Prince.
soon.
Better time.
Good night, Prince. All right, so let's finish up here by, I guess, well, Tom's gone already. That'll save some time. But we have Ed. Ed now. We can tell us maybe you want Ed, you continue to plug your channel or anything maybe you're up to lately, if you want to.
Sure. Well, first of all, I know that with the fest, I know Ken and Joe, I'll get to see you guys again.
Yep.
I wanted to say it's with Tom on there, but Tom will get to meet for the first time in person along with Kit. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
Andy, other folks, so I'm excited for that. So I'll be there. You look for the guy in the Broad Street jacket. It'll be kind of hard to miss. The YouTube channel, of course, call me Mr. Broadstreet. I'm also on YouTube. I'm on TikTok now, on Instagram. So it's call me Mr. Broadstreet. You'll find me. I've got a couple episodes in the can. I've actually got one with Pipes of Peace. I'm doing one with Milk and Honey on the 40th anniversary coming up pretty soon. Broad Street, I'm obviously going to do the album and the film probably a little bit later in the year. And as a little tease, I do have a Broad Street related autograph that I am going to do either middle or later this year. I don't think it's something that people have seen too often. It's something I got from Trax, so I think that's going to be really exciting to do that.
Nice.
That's pretty much it for me, but I can't wait to see, again, Ken and Joe, can't wait to see you guys again. Like I said,
Yeah.
see Tom and other
We'll
folks.
be there.
Happy to be there.
All right.
Just make sure you're there.
Oh, don't worry. I'll be there. And if I'm coming to get you. Where do you live? Anyway, honeymooners.
Oh no.
I think that's what it was. All right, Ken, what are you up to?
Quite a lot, actually. On my YouTube channel, I've been kind of getting back in action again. I did an interview with Owen Lynn, who, as I said, is a good friend of ours here at Talk More Talk. He's also been on Two Legs. He's been on my channel, Ken Michaels Radio, a lot. We just did a video, just an overview of Paul McCartney's solo career. All kinds of very general questions. What's Paul's best work? What's underrated? Who have been the best producers he's worked with? Who have been the best songwriters? Who has he worked with the best? All that kind of stuff. That's on my YouTube channel. I also did an interview with Doug Wolfberg, and I pointed out his book called Fab But True. It's all about a whole bunch of stories, lesser known stories of things that happened in Beatle history. And there's something like 19 or 20 stories in this book. And we talked about 5 of them, including the painting that I mentioned in the news that all 4 Beatles worked on. So both those interviews you can find on Ken Michaels Radio. If you can, please subscribe to that channel. Things we said today. I guess this will be the first time that I'm saying this, but we're kind of taking a break for the entire month, it looks like, because Alan Kozin has a deadline to finish the McCartney Legacy Volume 2, and he's trying to get it finished by the end of this month.
Wow.
So we don't want to do anything to interfere in that.
That's
So if Darren DeVivo and I do anything at all, it'll probably end up on my channel. It all depends on my schedule and what I'm doing on my channel as well. But that's just for the month of January. Hopefully, Alan will be back in February, and we're all going to be at the fest. So hopefully, we'll have our own panel discussions. You can meet all of us. But for things we said today, just for January right now, we're kind of taking a breather. My website, kenmichaelsradio.com. There's always Beatles trivia where you can win 1 of 10 great prizes every single week. By the way, I mentioned the Weaklings' new CD. This is it. Comes out January 19th. As I said, they cover I've Just Seen a Face and She's Leaving Home on here. They also do a medley of Mr. Soul and Satisfaction together, the Buffalo Springfield and the Rolling Stones, and Peter Noon sings lead on it.
Oh, wow.
On the new CD. You can win the CD on my website. And the trivia question that's there is something that I talked about in the news on this show. So if you paid attention, you'll know the answer. Okay. And I just want to mention that for my radio program, the syndicated show Every Little Thing, WFDU, which is the radio station that broadcasted in New Jersey, they are now going to broadcast the show 2 times on Sundays at 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. That's Eastern time. You can listen to my show at WFDU.FM. And you can also go to their website, WFDU.FM, go to their archives page, because they will post the last 2 shows that have aired of mine, of Every Little Thing, on the radio station. You can just play it on demand whenever you want. WFDU.FM. Click on the archives page for that. Okay, that's what's going on with me.
Okay, Kit, take it away.
All right. Well, before I get to my stuff, you, of course, can find us right here on this YouTube channel. So please subscribe, like, do all that stuff. And those of you who are new subscribers, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And those of you who have been longtime subscribers and viewers, thank you as always for your support. We couldn't do this without you. You can, of course, find us on any podcast streaming platform you can think of. You can find us on Facebook, and if you like us there, you'll be notified of any future episodes coming up. You can find us on Twitter at talkmoretalk1. That's the number 1. You can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. And you can find us on the web at talkmoretalk.com. So as far as I go, our new Toppermost, the Poppermost episode is up. It's for December 1963, and it's side A, which is the US charts. And so it's, coming, or no, I'm sorry, it's the British charts, so Beatlemania is in full swing. But the US charts, which will be coming soon, side B, it is just about to hit. So and then January, of course, which will be coming up soon, then we are going to be in full Beatlemania in the US. So I've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up on our show. So please subscribe and rate us if you would on those platforms, and you can find us at toppermostofthepoppermost.net. Also, I'm going to be starting my newest British invasion course very soon, which is part 3 in that series. And so we're going to be looking at 1967 through the early to mid 70s. I haven't decided where exactly I'm going to cut it off yet. So if you like psychedelic rock, if you like blues rock, if you like prog rock, well, this is for you. So you can sign up for the course. I have the link on the Talk More Talk page, on my page. So I hope to see you there. It's a really fun course with music, learning, and discussion. So I hope to see you there. And I think, and then of course the fest, as we've all been talking about, is coming up. We don't have any information yet on panels and so forth. So hopefully, I hope by the next show we will have that info.
Yeah. All right, so that's it then, huh? And I'll pass on my turn. All right, anyway, but thanks that was to say, thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it always. If you have any ideas for future shows, let us know. And everything like that. So for Kid O'Toole, Kenneth Michaels, Edward Crawford, and also Tom Magnotti, who had to leave. This is Mr. Mayo saying we got to get out of here, because if this keeps up, we won't be in London until Boxing Day. Cheers.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Ed.
Princess.